General Douglas MacArthur, born on January 26, 1880 in Little Rock, Arkansas. His father, Arthur MacArthur Jr., was a U.S. Army Lieutenant General and Medal of Honor winner. His mother was Mary Pinckney Hardy MacArthur, who came from a wealthy Virginia family. He had two other siblings, Arthur III and Malcolm. MacArthur grew up on a succession of army posts in the Wild West of the United States. During his childhood, he learned how to ride and shoot before he could read and write. He went to school at the West Texas Military Academy, where he was valedictorian of his class. His high school grade average was a 97, and he was also the shortstop for the baseball team, quarterback of the football team, and tennis star. He enrolled at West Point in 1899 and attended the academy with another famous Civil War general's son, Ulysses S. Grant III. MacArthur graduated first out of 93 in his class and graduated with the third highest grade average ever. MacArthur was assigned to the 3rd Engineer Battalion as a second lieutenant. His battalion was based in the Philippines, which is where MacArthur is first introduced into service in the islands he became famous for. MacArthur was involved in the occupation of Veracruz, Mexico. He led a small group of men to find trains and disarm them and their guards. MacArthur succeeded so much so that he was nominated for the Medal of Honor, but was denied because he went against the orders of his commander. With the outbreak of United States involvement in World War I, as Chief of Staff of the 42nd Rainbow Division, MacArthur prepared his men for open field warfare, rather than trench warfare. This was unheard of at the time and thought to be insane. His troops did so well in battle, and MacArthur was awarded with the Croix de Gras by the French and the Silver Star. During the time between World War I and World War II, he became superintendent of the United States Military Academy at West Point. By taking this role, MacArthur reformed the academy by making it more modern and retained his role as brigadier general. At the time, West Point required a 3-year course to graduate. MacArthur made it a 4-year course. In 1922, MacArthur got married to Louis Cromwell Brooks. Soon after his marriage, he sailed to the Philippines with his wife and 2 children to become head of the military district of Manila. MacArthur and his wife got a divorce in 1927, and in that same year, MacArthur became the president of the American Olympic Committee. He got the Americans to 24 gold medals. In 1930, MacArthur became a major general. He was the youngest of the major generals of the Army. He was asked to overlook the creation of the Philippine Army. The outbreak of U.S. involvement in World War II, MacArthur, then a lieutenant general, was the commander of the United States Army force in the Far East. He was based in the Philippines, where he had been living for a while. The Japanese caught MacArthur and his forces off guard in 1942 when they attacked, and MacArthur did everything he could to slow them down. His Filipino soldiers were just not good enough fighters at the time to hold off the skilled Japanese fighters. The last holdoff for MacArthur came in Bataan, but MacArthur knew that the Philippines had been lost. With President Roosevelt insisting that he and his other generals flee to Australia, he did so. When he was leaving, he made his famous quote, "I came through and I shall return." This quote made the public love him, and for his actions of defending Bataan, MacArthur was awarded the Medal of Honor. Exiled to the Philippines, MacArthur went right after the Japanese in New Guinea. He outmaneuvered the Japanese and swept them aside for a crucial win in the Pacific for the United States. In 1944, MacArthur met with President Roosevelt and discussed how to attack the Japanese. MacArthur convinced the president to allow him to go back after the Philippines. MacArthur's troops hit the shores of Leyte, Philippines on October 20, 1944. When MacArthur walked ashore on the beaches just taken by American soldiers, he said, "People of the Philippines, I have returned." This was monumental because MacArthur promised that he would come back to the Philippines when he lost the islands, and he fulfilled his promise. By July of 1945, MacArthur had completely liberated the Philippines of Japanese control. He pushed them out with brute force and manpower, overwhelming a depleted force. On September 2, 1945, General Douglas MacArthur accepted Japanese surrender aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. The surrender brought World War II to an end, and an Allied victory in the Pacific. Because of MacArthur's win and strategies, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Medal for the 5th time. From 1945 to 1951, MacArthur was Japan's interim leader. He helped them rebuild their land, military, human rights, economy, and mainly their government back up. On June 25, 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea. When the United Nations Security Council decided to come to the aid of the South Koreans, the UN chose Douglas MacArthur as its commander, unanimously. MacArthur was thrown into a terrible situation. With his forces pinned in the southern city of Pusan, MacArthur decided to take a major risk. He ordered an amphibious landing at the Incheon, which is more than 100 miles away from Pusan. The move was successful and trapped the North Koreans in the south away from their supply lines. To this day, this move is considered one of the boldest and successful moves in war history. It freed cornered troops and also helped the United Nations regain control of Seoul, South Korea's capital, in one move. MacArthur kept the momentum going, even past the 38th parallel, border between South Korea and North Korea, and almost to the Chinese border. When the Chinese attacked, MacArthur was forced to retreat out of North Korea. He grew furious about this and counterattacked with great force. The problem was that he wanted to continue north and invade China, but as soon as Truman learned of this move, he met with his advisors and removed MacArthur from command. MacArthur's sudden removal of command during the Korean War led to a national outcry and destroyed President Truman's reputation. After his removal from the Korean War, MacArthur went on to live a comfortable life with his family. He retired from active military service in 1952 and was called upon Presidents Eisenhower and Kennedy to help solve disputes and give advice on domestic and foreign action for the remainder of his life. Douglas MacArthur died on April 5, 1964, in Washington, D.C. from biliary cirrhosis. He is buried at the Douglas MacArthur Memorial in Norfolk, Virginia. Awards and honors: Medal of Honor, 3 Distinguished Service Crosses, 5 Army Distinguished Service Medals, Navy Distinguished Service Medal, 7 Silver Stars, the Distinguished Flying Cross, 3 Bronze Stars, an Air Medal, 2 Purple Hearts, the Croix de Gras, Medal of Valor, Legion of Honor, 2 Grand Crosses, the Rising Sun, and an Order of White Eagle. MacArthur's legacy is he is one of the most decorated soldiers in United States history. His battlefield composure and knowledge were top-notch, and he is regarded as one of the greatest military generals and strategists the world has ever seen. Douglas MacArthur by Kyle Joyce. Period 8.